on Laquita's Toolbox. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or someone just looking to level up, this show is packed with powerful insights and real strategies to help you succeed. Imagine yourself here, sharing your story, your expertise, and making a real impact with an audience ready to grow and thrive. With Laquita's Toolbox, you'll be inspired, empowered, and part of an incredible community that's all about winning. This is your moment. Don't miss the opportunity to be a guest on Laquita's Toolbox. Unlock new doors, connect with like-minded professionals, and elevate your brand to new heights. Ready to make your mark? Head over to www.laquitamonley.com, Laquita's Toolbox, and sign up to be a guest today.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of Laquita's Toolbox Live. I am your host, Laquita Monley, and I am absolutely excited to be with you guys on today on this amazing Monday. It is Veterans Day, and we have a very special show lined up for you guys today. Some of you may know already, and if you're new to the live, you might not know, but my husband and I are absolutely a proud veteran family. My husband, Ben, served 24 plus years active duty Army, and he did his transition into retirement in 2017. And on tonight's show, we have several other veteran families that will be coming on and talking with us about what it meant to serve on active duty, how they transitioned into retirement, and to give us some tips, tools, and strategies as fellow veteran entrepreneurs, and as well as tips, tools, and strategies to our family members on how they can best support our veteran community. Listen, you guys know the drill. Get something to write with and something to write on, because you do not want to miss any of the tools that our veterans will be sharing with us on tonight. So let's start to bring up our first veteran family. We are going to welcome to the stage Executive Coach of the Year, and he's the host of Developing the Leader Within podcast. And his amazing wife is joining us on tonight as well. Thank you for joining us, Miss Nancy. And she has accolades of her own. Listen, y'all, the hardest job in the military is by far being a military spouse. So I know the hardest job in the Navy is being a Navy wife, right? So not only that, Miss Nancy has a new book coming out, and I know on tonight she's going to tell us all about it. Guys, welcome to the show this evening. How are you?
Thank you. We're well. Thank you.
Good to be here.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're super excited to have you, and we're going to just bring up our next guest. This is Mr. Jerome and LaChelle Adkins. Many of you know America's Supermom. She probably doesn't need any introduction, but come onto the stage, LaChelle and Jerome. Bring them onto the stage. And we also have my BFF, my best friend, another fellow Army veteran, Miss Stephanie Legans. Stephanie is an Army veteran, and she is also the founder of a nonprofit, the Floyd McAllen Hope Center in San Antonio, Texas. Please bring Miss Stephanie onto the stage as well. And last but definitely not least, a very good friend of mine, again, another fellow Army veteran. I'm sorry, Enrique. I was trying to get some mixture up in here, brother. I needed some Army, some Air Force, some Navy, some
Hey,
Marines.
I know how to say "or," so I'm good.
All right, all right. So Miss Monique is a 100% disabled combat female veteran, and I'm very, very proud. So I have to say this. I have to say this. I've had the pleasure over Ben's career to meet some amazing female veterans, and Stephanie and Monique are just two of those amazing women that I've met over Ben's time on active duty. And I'm so honored that Monique was able to join us, squeeze us into her schedule because I wasn't timely in my request. And I'm just happy and honored that she was able to join us on tonight. She served on over 13 years with 2 combat tours, Iraq, OEF, OIF, and she is an HR professional. She's also an amazing podcast host and entrepreneur. Miss Monique, welcome to the Toolbox tonight. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome, awesome, guys. Listen, I know. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, Mr. Jerome. We're gonna let you start off first tonight, sir. Because normally it's me and LaChelle over here running our mouth, but I think tonight should be your night, sir. My plan was for you and Ben to kind of lead the show tonight, but since he is otherwise engaged, welcome to the show, sir. And I know I didn't give you a proper introduction, so this is what I'm going to do. I am going to let you introduce yourself before so I don't mess nothing up, because you have some amazing things that you have done and are currently doing right now.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we
Can you
can.
hear me? All
Yes,
right.
sir. Can you
My
hear
name
me?
is Jerome Atkins. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah. It's just a delay on our end, a delay. As long as y'all can hear me and catch up, I'm okay. Of course, I'm the father of 15 children. I did 24 years, 8 months in the Army, mostly reserves, and was called up during the war, of course. And that's how I actually spent most of my military time um, on active duty. 4 years at Fort Benning, and after Fort Benning, we decided to stay in Georgia. Originally from Indiana, raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and went to Indiana University. By the way, we're 10-0, so y'all can know that Indiana University football, the best has been in the history of the university. So glad to say that we'll be in the top 5. So all the haters out there, we coming for them. I have worked for 3, 4, and 5 companies, and I've been running my business as a contractor now for probably 20, 22 years, and I've done a lot of different businesses, and best-selling author of 2 books. One is called um, what the name of my books? Just drew a blank. Pray Without Ceasing, and Phenomenal Men of Faith. Great books. I would encourage y'all to get those if you can. They're both streaming on the platforms of Amazon, of course. Um, my biggest opportunity in life is that I married a wonderful woman, and she gave me some lovely children. And what I enjoy doing is spending time with my kids. And last but not least, I'm a pastor of well over, how old is Allie now? 28. One of our daughters is 28. That's how I remember how long I've been preaching. She's 28, and we founded a church here together in Stockbridge. Well, actually, it's in McDonough, Georgia, but we reside in Stockbridge, Georgia. And so that's a little bit about me. Um, that's what I have, Miss Laquita. What questions do you have for me?
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, my first question for everybody on tonight, I think I'm going to start with the spouses, and and uh, Stephanie and Monique. I think that you guys, this question will be a little bit different for you guys, because not only have you guys both been spouses, but you've also both been the sponsor. And so, during your time on active duty, and I'll start with Miss Monique. During your time on active duty, um, how was that being both the sponsor and a spouse at the same time? And we'll start with you, Miss Monique. Yep. Did we lose Miss Monique?
It's just delay.
Okay. Steph, let's go ahead and start with you. I think we may have lost Monique.
Well, what is that like? You learn really quick, or at least I did. I won't speak for everyone, but I learned to compartmentalize very quickly. I dealt with work when I was at work, and I switched as best I could with the three boys when I got home. And I learned the pattern and how to do all of the things, that were required when I was at work and when I was at home. It was a learning process.
It was a learning process. Was so
I can't hear you. I
Miss
can't hear
Nancy,
you.
let's pose that question
Oh,
to you. I'm not. I should have asked the question beforehand. Can you hear me, Miss
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Miss Nancy? Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So,
Yes, I
what
can
was
hear
your
you.
experience like being a Navy wife?
Well, in the beginning, it was a bit hard because I was transitioning overall. I was pregnant with our son. So everything was just brand new. Locations, starting over with another child after like a 10-year gap. Obviously, I was older, a little bit older. So that was challenging, not realizing that my husband will be gone quite a bit. But I adapted pretty quickly. I mean, I had no choice, so you just adapt pretty quickly and just focus on the children and on making sure that everything runs smoothly to make things easier for him. It kept me busy, but it also kind of assured for him that everything was running smoothly and everything was well, and it would give him one less thing to worry about.
That's good. That I Ben joined the military when I was very young, but that transition going from my parents' house to my husband's house that happened to be 500 plus miles away from my house and into this whole army life, that was that was a huge transition, and we had little kids. So I can't imagine how you were making a lot of transitions at one time. You were coming into
mhm.
being a Navy spouse, and coming with the children, and then the age gap between the children, that had to be difficult. What would you say was one thing that you would recommend to fellow Navy spouses or fellow military spouses that are making those transitions for the first time? What would be, I guess, maybe two things that you would recommend to them that would make that transition easier?
I think one of the first things would be to make research, to do research, kind of do research to where you're going to. Well, I mean, back then they didn't really have social media like they have now. So now you can actually see if they have groups, like spouses groups, that you can kind of connect with people there. Put
Yeah.
yourself out there and connect and make at least one connection, a friend from a distance, that when you go into it, you have someone, some sort of support, because that's very important, especially
Mm,
when you're used to being around family and now you're moving hundreds of miles and it's just
right.
you and your immediate family. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think the other thing is
Okay.
also doing something for yourself. Like I didn't do anything, for myself. I focused on my children, which was great. And I mean, and I love it. I'm still like that. But I didn't do anything for myself. And that doesn't help because you don't have anything to take like a brief break and just to kind of like decompress. You just constantly on the go.
Mm,
I would say personally, those would be the
on
two
the
piece of
go.
advice I can give. At least for me, it would have worked. Yes.
I can see that. I can see that. It kind of it's important to be able to have that time to decompress. And when we have so many transitions happening at the same time, it's you can fall into that robotic flow of just doing, going, but not taking out that time for yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. Uh, Miss Lachelle,
Yes, of course.
now you guys had a even different, even more so different transition. You guys were transitioning from reserve life to active duty life. What is maybe
Mm-hmm.
two tips that you would give to a reservist, a National Guard family that's transitioning from those two, either reservists or National Guard, transitioning into active duty. And then you guys were transitioning into active duty during the time of, we were engaged in conflicts. How was that experience? And what are two tips that you could share that will help make that transition easier for other families?
Okay, I think that's a great question. And that was really a challenge for us moving in because as a reservist, you're not really immersed into the hierarchy and a lot of the things that go on as an active duty spouse, even, knowing rank and things like that. We really didn't have to focus on that a lot because my husband would have to go away for like a weekend, a month. And occasionally we would go to different events, whether it's Christmas parties or some of the military balls and things like that. But one of the things that really helped us with the transition was creating community. So we created community with the spouses that came with our unit and transitioned into active duty. The spouses came together, I believe it would be like 2 times a month, and we would have lunch or dinner, depending on the time frame. And we would rotate houses, rotate the culture of the meal that would be served. And all of our kids would come together and we would just be very open and honest about some of the things that we didn't understand, where we could take the kids for recreation or where's the place to shop and when to go shop and things like that. So a lot of our immediate concerns as it was related to the family, we kind of just carved out our own support system when we did move. And I think the second thing is, communicating with your family, making it where you have an open door policy with your kids. I know for our kids, we went through a lot of changes on a regular basis with a growing family. We would, every year we had a new baby. So we would have to move into a new house or move into a new school or something like that. So our kids were used to transition with meeting new people and starting things fresh, but just staying in communication with them. This was the first time we had to move out of state away from a lot of our families. So just making sure that we had an open door communication with them and visiting with family, FaceTiming them and talking on the phone and doing things that really helped the kids transition, I think was important as well.
Awesome. That's really good. That's really good. And then I think we do have Miss Nikki back with us. And Miss Nikki, I'm going to give you the question now just to think on it a little bit. And then we'll answer that question after the commercial break. But the question that I have for you, Miss Nikki, was the same that I had for Stephanie, because yourself and Stephanie had that unique experience of being both active duty. You were active duty service member, you were the sponsor, and you were mom all at the same time. And so my question to you, Nikki, was, what was that like for you? And if you can give 2 tips to another female veteran or active duty service member that could help her in her time of service or in her time of transition, some tools that you learned during your time on active duty as the sponsor. But don't answer right now. Give me just a few moments. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to find out that answer from Miss Nikki. You guys, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Are you ready to take your business, career, and mindset to the next level? Then it's time to join the conversation on Laquita's Toolbox. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or someone just looking to level up, this show is packed with powerful insights and real strategies to help you succeed. Imagine yourself here, sharing your story, your expertise, and making a real impact with an audience ready to grow and thrive. With Laquita's Toolbox, you'll be inspired, empowered, and part of an incredible community that's all about winning. This is your moment. Don't miss the opportunity to be a guest on LaQuita's Toolbox. Unlock new doors, connect with like-minded professionals, and elevate your brand to new heights. Ready to make your mark? Head over to www.laquitamonley.com, LaQuita's Toolbox, and sign up to be a guest today.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Listen, it is good to be here. If you are just joining us, welcome to LaQuita's Toolbox Live. We have a special edition where we have gathered together several veteran families, and we're just enjoying a conversation tonight, talking about some experiences that we've had while on active duty. And we'll also be talking about what it was like to transition from active duty to retirement, and giving out some tips, tools, and strategies that we feel will be helpful to those that are making that transition as well. And right now, we are hear us now, Miss Monique.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Were you able to catch my question earlier? I wasn't sure if you
Okay,
were.
sorry about that. Yes, I did. I was able to catch it. What I would have to say and add
Okay.
is, for me, it was difficult at times, being that my husband had served 21 years in the military. When I met him, he was toward the end of his career, and so was I. So we married in 2012, and he retired after 21 years of service in 2013, and then I later retired in 2015. So our experiences and deployments and everything we had been through in the military career was totally different. So trying to blend the families together, blend the children together, um, our way of thinking, what we had been through, it was very difficult. So a lot of times we try to keep our military career separate so that it would minimize, it's like if he said, "Well, I've been deployed six times, and I've been only deployed two." Neither one of us can compare because we've been through our own um, things and everything like that. So when it comes to the military and being a sponsor and being a mom and then being a wife, um, at times it's difficult. You really have to make sure you have a lot of planning, setting goals, what you want for your family, um, working full time, coming home, trying to have to figure out, what everybody's eating. I was going to school at the same time to get my bachelor's and master's. So it was a lot. It takes a lot of balance, and it takes a lot of support and a lot of resources. And you kind of really have to continue to reevaluate your relationship and where y'all are going, where y'all are headed, what your goals are, and find out what resources you have through the military.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's really is a great segue into my next question. For Enrique, uh, when you retired, you were a senior non-commissioned officer. So, uh, you you saw some stuff. You've been through some stuff. You've done some stuff. And so, at that time, as a senior non-commissioned officer, and you're making that transition, what was it? I guess my first question would be, how did you know that it was time to retire? What did you do? What was that like, saying, okay, it's time for me to drop my retirement packet?
Yeah. Funny story is that I was forced to retire. So you have higher tenure. And had they had not that, I'd probably still be in right now. Uh, my wife can attest to that. But yeah, so
Oh,
we
that
have
leads
a
to another
rank
set of
by
questions. Go ahead.
year type of yeah, we have a rank by year. And so if you don't make rank by a particular time, then you have to move on out. And I was like,
Mhm.
what? And it was 6 months between the time I was notified that I didn't make rank to the time that my contract was up. So on top of that
Mm.
6-month time frame, also coming from Hawaii, which is overseas, trying to find a place in the States when you haven't been there. So I was just at the personnel office, and I felt the Lord say Orlando, and that's how we ended up here. So, but it was pretty scary, to say the least, because now you're all of a sudden your illustrious career is going away, and nothing to transition
Oh,
to.
that's some question.
So
That's right.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty scary, but like I said, if the Lord take you there, He get you through it, right? So we just went
He'll
with it,
get you through.
and thankfully enough, yeah, thankfully enough, that's exactly what He's done. He's got us through, and yeah, but
Awesome.
I wish I had more time to to say to say goodbye to the military, but hey,
No,
it was what it was.
it was what it was. Listen, my husband has stepped into the space, y'all. So we're gonna go on a quick break. We're gonna go on a really quick break, William, if you could with us, so we can get Ben Monley set up and get his input on that same question, as well as Jerome's input on that same question. So, you guys, thank you so much for your patience. Those of you that are joining us live right now on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on the Purpose Place Network, Daily Faith Network, and Parade Deck. This live is going out to as many veteran and active duty families as possible, as well as civilian families stationed all across the globe. We will be right back after this quick commercial break. All right. All right. All right. But can you pull that mic up close? Can everybody still hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Yes, we all can still hear us. Okay. All right. So, listen, guys, my husband has joined us, none other than Mr. Ben Monley himself. But thank you for coming on the podcast this evening. Then he goes, "You're welcome." All right. I think we do have some time delays, little snags, but it's all good. So, the last question that we had was, when did you know or your retirement packet? And so Enrique gave us a really great example. He shared a bit with us about his story, of how he began his transition into retirement. Jerome, would you care to share with us how you began your transition into retirement?
Yeah, my story is similar to Enrique's. I retired as a major, but I was up for lieutenant colonel, and my back was bothering me a lot. And I was called to possibly go over to Iraq, and I didn't pass the process to go over there. So, of course, anybody that's been in the military, if you're medically challenged, they look at you differently, unfortunately. But never really loved the military once I went on active duty. The time that I spent, and it was really a tough transition. And here's what I tell a lot of reservists: I had a great job, man. I was a Viagra salesman, so I there wasn't nothing else for me to do, but that was a great job, and everybody on the planet wanted a Viagra at the time, and I was like, I'm about to make some serious money. And I got called active duty. I couldn't believe it, man. I just like Lord. But anyway, what I want to share with the team is after my active duty time was up, and I was, Pfizer was very generous to me. It's not advertisement for them, but they were very generous to me. They They took care of me on my transition. But that's the time that Big Pharma was being downsized. So when I got off active duty, I had no job. That was very tough. But it was a blessing. I started my own company. I was doing concrete construction. I was making really good money and just enjoying myself. And then a housing crisis hit. Oh my gosh. So it was like one thing after another, 2007, 2008. The transition was tough, but God, well, I tell you, he will show up and show out every time. I'm trying to tell you. So um,
Mm.
2008, I had done the last big job I had, and I was trying to transition back to civilian life. Remember, this is 2 or 3 years after I was on active duty, so my life was rearranged. We were in Columbus. We had a house back in Indianapolis, a home in Columbus, and business and all kind of still having kids. Well, we still having kids. We didn't care, um, and so good Lord bless me. And I took a position because I was in the military as a store manager for Walmart. So I transitioned in 2008 to Walmart GM positions and ran those stores for 8 years. Um, and then during that transition, when I retired in 2013. So just really interesting life during that time. I really, my wife, bless her heart, had to go through a lot of my changes. I went from working and staying in Columbus to commuting. I commuted from Stockbridge, I'm sorry, from Columbus to Decatur, Georgia, which is about 141 miles every day to make that transition.
Wow.
So it's very, very challenging, very challenging. I did that for a year and a half, and then we relocated to McDonough after that. So
Wow.
the Lord's good. I no
Wow.
complaints.
He is. He is. His mercy endures forever. You know, as I
Oh,
hear your story about transition and Enrique's story about transition, Enrique said something that like really struck me like, yeah, I get that. Just from a spouse perspective, of course. And babe, what Enrique was saying earlier was he he didn't decide to retire. He had to retire. And
mhm.
being a senior non-com, he went from this amazing, illustrious career to now um, you're a civilian. And I know me and you have had some of those conversations where you go from all of the, I don't think glitz and glam is the right word, but you go from all of these amazing responsibilities to
Yeah.
starting over fresh. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about your retirement experience and what it was like, and how you came to that decision.
Um, Much like the other guys said, uh, if I had I known what I know now, I would have stayed in 30, 40 years too. I mean, it's just the job was easy. I was a senior non-commissioned officer at the time, so I was E7 looking at E8, had already made the E8 list, and had them reach 20, and so I wasn't worried about getting out or whatever. Um, and ran into some issues where things didn't quite go as we had planned. You know, everybody has a plan, so to speak, and you think you have a plan, and then something comes up in your career, whether it's career wise, whether it's personal. Um, you know, body starts breaking down. Whatever the case may be, whatever causes you to get to that point, you get to that point where you have to make a decision. And I never hadn't really thought about anything else but being in the military, because that's what I did. I mean, that was just it was sort of my identity at the time. I didn't have another identity. I was in the military. I was in the army. Had no plans on doing anything else, and then all of a sudden, I'm faced with a decision that I did not plan on. So, um, ended up going through like I said, I was over 20 years at the time, and ended up going through the med board process. So I was medically retired, and um, just I, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I had no I didn't have a problem with the transition. I just like I said, the military was my identity. So at the time, that was all I had did for over 20 years. I was a for the first 3 years I was in the military. I was a light wheel vehicle mechanic. The rest of the time I was in the military, I was an all source intelligence analyst. So um, I had fun doing what I was doing. It wasn't a hard job, wasn't a difficult job. But like I said, I hadn't planned on doing anything else. Hadn't really thought about it. And now I'm faced with a decision. Okay, what are you going to do? And at the time, we were in Europe. Had been in Europe for um, the better part of 6 years, almost 7 years. We had been in Europe between England and Germany. I PCS from England to Germany, and so my kids pretty much grew up in Europe. We had gotten comfortable being in Europe, living in Europe, and then, like I said, next thing you know, we're faced with this decision. We have to come back to the States. We have to uh, pretty much start our lives all over again because the military was all we had done for over 20 years. And I like I said, I didn't have a hard transition, and I was blessed to kind of walk into a job um, as we moved back to here in Texas, where we are now, because we had property here, so it made it easy for us to make the transition. We already had a place to live, um, so we weren't worried about that. But it was just everything else. What am I gonna do now? Because I had no plans until the med board came up, and a lot of, if you know anything about the med board process, it takes time. But still, the whole time you're doing the med board process, you're not planning on your next step. Or I didn't plan on my next step. I was focused on getting through the med board process. So next thing you know, I get my ratings, my percentages, and all of this stuff, and they tell me I have uh I have 30 days to transition out of the military, and it's like, oh, well, reality really set in. I mean, the reality set in when I was going through the process, but it really sets in when you get this piece of paper that says, okay, now you have 30 days to transition out of the military, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? You're worried about transitioning. You're worried about what the next step is, how you're going to transition your family, um, all of these little things that you never had to think about before. Now all of a sudden become big important things, and it becomes decisions that you have to make now because, like I said, reality is set in. You got to transition, or I had to transition out of the military. I had to just up and leave what I had done pretty much my entire adult life. I that was my identity. I was a soldier, and now I no longer have that. So um, I was pretty blessed and fortunate to walk into a job um, where I could use the skills that I had gained in the military, being an all source intelligence analyst. I now teach all source intelligence analysts. So a bit of luck, and a bit of luck and a lot of prayer. Um, a lot of well, let's say a lot of prayer and a bit of luck, because the prayer is first always. Um, yeah, we prayed about it. We thought about it. We tried to make plans. We did all of the resume things. We did so much stuff, and we did USA jobs. Got turned down a bunch of times because you didn't dot a I across a T, or if you're familiar with that situation or with that process, you know how it goes. And just ended up walking, like I said, walking into a job that I didn't even know existed before that time. I didn't even know it was here. I didn't even know that opportunity was here, and ended up getting it. And there went my second career. I started a new career as a teacher versus being a soldier. So it was rough. We had, you know, there was some bumps in the road. There was definitely a lot of things we did not plan for that that we had to fix. We had to figure out how we were going to do a lot of stuff because it was already done for us. Being in the military, a lot of it was already done for you. You didn't have to worry about medical. You didn't have to worry about dental. You didn't have to. There were so many things that I never had to worry about for myself or my kids or my wife. That now, oh, I got to figure all of this stuff out. What happens when you have your kid gets sick, but uh, they've aged out of the military's health care. So, or what happens when, the wife gets sick and all of a sudden she's not covered. You get all the health care the military has for retirees, and somebody gets sick in the family and they're not covered under that particular plan. You have to buy another plan, or you have to pay X amount of dollars to get this extra coverage, and things I never had to worry about as a soldier, as a husband, as a father. Now I have to worry about all of this stuff. So there was definitely a learning curve, because there was a lot of stuff. Once again, as a soldier, I just didn't care about because I never had to worry about it. It was taken care of for me, and now all of a sudden I'm the decision maker. This stuff really matters. I have to make a decision. I have to go and purchase this. I have to go and I have to apply for that. There were so many things that just I was oblivious of, because as a soldier it was done for me automatically. I didn't have to worry about it. That now I'm responsible for figuring out. So um that's pretty much it, babe.
Okay. That was some really good points. Like, did any of you guys experience any of that? I guess anxiety, those experiences when it was coming to time to transition into retirement, and if so, what could you share with those that are still on active duty to say, "Hey, listen, these are the things that you can expect. These are recommendations of what you should be putting together when you get to that start, say the 15, 16, 17 year mark, and you're going to retire." And that's from that question is to everyone, spouses as well as the service members, because there was a lot of things that as he was getting ready to retire and after he retired, I didn't think about it while he was on active duty. But then when he was no longer active duty, it was kind of like, oh bam, this is in my face. So now what do I do? What are some tools that families can start to put in place now that would work good for them in this retirement transition? And Enrique, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah, my biggest suggestion is to get civilianized. How do you do that? You start going out to the common common folk, we say, community, and stop
Marketplace.
hanging around military only. I know it's comfortable, but it's going to be detrimental when you go from one place to the other. I've often said we are the 1% that the 99% of the world forgot. They learn to
Mhm.
live without us, you know,
Mm.
and it's and you know, so now we got to go and try to catch up to people that have been going for whatever amount of years we've been in. So the sooner you can get out into the civilian community, the better it'll be for you.
Awesome, awesome. What about you, Miss Nancy? What would you recommend to spouses to help them prepare for that transition?
My recommendation is start drafting up a plan. We have a daughter who is married to a service member. He's in the Air Force and he's 8 years in. He wants to make a career out of it, but I'm also realistic. And I told her in the event things don't go as planned, because that can happen, I constantly give her advice. You guys should start coming up with a plan now as to what that next chapter is going to look like. It doesn't mean it necessarily will look exactly as you have in mind, but at least you have a plan. And I tell her all the time, it's difficult to transition. You do get used to, like your husband said, the way that military things kind of run smoothly. A lot of things are done for you already. You get so used to it that when you have to do certain things for yourself, it is a challenge. And it's frustrating for both the service member who's going to retire and to the spouse, especially depending on the time frame. We had 6 months. Those were probably the worst 6 months for us because
Yeah.
we are in Hawaii. We're coming to back to the States, like my husband said, trying to look for a job. We have kids. One of our sons was, in school. So you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do with that. And there's just so many things. There are so many things. But I definitely will stick to plan. Start having those hard conversations, because a lot of times both the spouses and or the service member avoid the conversation because they're comfortable where they are. And like my husband just said, start getting used to civilian life. He personally had a very hard time adjusting because the military was all he knew. And I myself would tell him all the time when he would, when he finally had a job and he would, be upset about this, that, or the other, I would tell him, because I have experience civilian, corporate world, I would tell him, this is the corporate world. This is
Yeah.
America. This is the way it
Yeah.
works.
That's the
But
way.
it was
Yeah.
hard and it was difficult for me to watch him, come home and look so he wanted everything so structured. I'm like, that's not the way it works out here.
It's say, I've had a long time to be a civilian, dear. That's not how
Yes.
this works.
So exactly. So I think that kind of putting yourself out there, speaking to people, speak to, civilian friends that you may have that have never served, and speak to people who have served that you're familiar with that have been out for a bit, and kind of get tips from each one along and put it together with your plan. I mean, planning is better than having anything at all. So that's the best advice I can give.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, it was watching Ben go from the position that he had on that, because his last couple active duty positions were really prestigious, extremely prestigious. Um, Working for NATO, and then working uh, get kind of for NATO again with his last position. And there's nothing wrong with the position that he has now, but there are significant
Hmm.
differences. And watching him have to go through that transition emotionally,
Hmm.
it was hard. It was hard to watch him
Yes.
do that and have to, come to terms with it. So I definitely get in that frustration. It's like, wait, I've been a civilian a long time. They're
Hmm.
just not going to do it the way you want them to.
Yeah,
It's
you
just
want to
not
be
gonna.
as supportive as you can, but it's hard because they're the ones going through it. But if you
Right.
plan ahead of time, like I said, have a plan. At least you have a good head start. I mean, that's just the way I see it.
Right. And if we have time on this show, would I also like to talk about how that transition impacted our kids, because we didn't even think about that. We were busy planning how the transition would impact Ben, and didn't think about how it would impact me, and definitely didn't think about how it would impact our children. But before we go there, Monique, if you could share with us how about your transition from active duty into a civilian, and you're an entrepreneur. Like, share with us some of your experiences and what you would recommend to fellow female veterans to help them get ready for that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Just had to make sure with the signal and everything. For my transition, I will say it was very difficult. But when I knew I was going to med board and made the decision, because my second deployment, I almost didn't make it back. I knew for a fact that I would never deploy again. And so I had to make that decision to get out because it just meant more to me to be with my kids and my family. So um, I got out, and then I went straight to school. Well, I was in school during the military, but it's hard to work for the military and go to school. So it's not like you can take a full or be a full-time student. So I had to figure out how to work. I think when I first got out, my job was like at Ross as an area supervisor, and I just, prior to going into the military, I worked in the civilian sector. But afterwards, my whole thought process of, being disciplined and showing up on time and people wanting to work, when you get into sometimes the civilian sector, people aren't as disciplined. And so it's very hard to come into a civilian sector with that kind of mentality, and people just don't have that kind of discipline. So for me, it was very hard to adjust. Some of the things that I would definitely say is for everybody who is thinking about transitioning, one, up front is make sure your medical, I don't care if you're retiring, I don't care if you're med boarding, make sure your medical, your disability is in order, because that transition will help for whenever you get into a job or entrepreneurship. uh, what you're entitled to is very important. Second thing is making sure you use your benefits for school, and that is any kind of, whether it's certifications, whether it's a degree, whatever choice that you made. Sometimes it should align with what military profession you have, to try to go into that same field, to have that experience behind our belt with serving with the military. But then the certifications or the degrees is important. And we have to learn also how to resume right, so that is giving what we've been through in our military career and our profession, to translate it to a civilian sector, to let them know that we are qualified by our history and what we've been through. And so sometimes the wording when we put it down on resumes is difficult. I will say, when I first started out in the civilian sector, I had a few deaths in the family, and my husband had got congestion heart failure. So my first job with the civilian sector, I was terminated, and so that's the reason why I started my business, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur for mental health, and to also work for myself, so that somebody didn't have that level of control over my life, to dictate whether I could had to take care of my family or work. So that's the reason why I started my business. And now that everything has settled, I am now back in the federal government, and able to focus. But a lot of things align, and so that's what we need to make sure that we're doing, is we do what we want to do, what makes us happy, what makes the choices for our family, for us to survive. Because a lot of us do have mental health and different issues. We need to be able to be allowed to go to our appointments, and when that doesn't happen and we don't get that support, that's the reason why there's a lot of entrepreneurs for that reason.
Right,
Because
right.
we need to be able to still go to our VA appointments to be 100%, or whatever our percentages are.
You brought up a lot of great points. We probably should have had 2, 3 episodes in this one. And Stephanie, definitely last but not least, And even it's a good segue. So, same question to you, but even more so in that area of making sure that your medical is where it needs to be. Do you have any, what are your tips that you would give to fellow female
There are
veterans?
a lot the same as what has been said. Put yourself back in the picture. A lot of us don't know what that looks like because we're always putting everyone else first, from the spouses to the children to the job. Um, but we put us last. And so when we come to that place where it's time to go on to the next chapter, we don't know who we're dealing with because we don't know who we are. We've been a soldier, we've been a husband or a wife, excuse me, we've been a brother or a sister, but who are we? What do we like? Get to know who you are and be okay with that. Do you like chocolate ice cream, or have you just been eating it because that's what you think everybody expects? Um, just figure out who you are, take care of your medical, take care of you. um, medical, medical, mental health, all of the things that you need to do. Take care of them.
Awesome, awesome. And this is going to be my last question this evening. Um, and we'll start with Jerome and LaChelle. What are some tips that you could give to family members, and not just immediate family members? Because I don't know about you guys, but for me and Ben, the Army moved us to a lot of places, but they never moved us close to home. And so when it comes to how our extended family would try to support us, they I won't necessarily use the word failed, but they weren't like properly equipped with how to actually be supportive of us, or knowing when to be supported, right? Like when Ben was on active duty, his family was extremely supportive. My family was extremely supportive, but they didn't really know what to say or do, and how, or even when he came off retirement, everybody was excited that he came off of retirement, but it didn't really dawn on them how much of a struggle that was for him to be in retirement. So that's the question you guys can think of. What are some things that you would share with the loved ones of
There you
veterans on how to best
go.
support them during, whether they're on active duty or whether they're in retirement? What's the best way that family members can support them? We start with LaChelle and Jerome.
Yes.
Well, I think we have a pretty unique situation because with the number of children we had, we never really had that strong support of our family. I wouldn't say we didn't have the support, but we just had an attitude that it was me and my husband against the world. So we
Yeah.
did a lot of things in autonomy. So I think it really was not really a hard transition when it came to that. I think that sometimes can be a downfall because you're bearing a lot of burdens when you can have more community that could help you. So, the fact that we just didn't have anybody uniquely in our situation with a number of children, we also had to balance stepchildren. So, visitation with children that were outside of the household on a regular basis until our oldest son came to live with us. So I think a lot of the hard things that we endured, it did align at the same time with Jerome's military career, but we had an attitude of really being committed to the things that we had signed up for. And along the lines of what the last question you asked about, just the things that you would tell people, I think the mindset is something really to focus on because Ben said a lot when he said it was his identity. And as a mom who went through depression, I resonate with that. A lot of things my identity was attached to certain time frames in our life. And when that chapter is over, if you're not equipped or plan or think about life after that, you're just stuck where you don't know what to do next. And when you have your family and your spouse and other people dependent on you, that's just a lot of pressure. So being honest and communicating, asking for help, even if something seems small, getting comfortable with being able to ask for help, I think is a big thing to do because, things change. I'm asking for help from my kids all the time with social media. Okay. So many things come up that you just aren't aware of. So, always being ready to ask for help.
I
Yeah,
love
it's cool.
that.
Go ahead.
No,
I
go
said,
ahead.
yeah. So for myself, it was just a little different perspective, and it's amazing. You live in the same house, you have two different perspectives on leave, family, and that kind of thing. We left everybody back home, mom and dad, everybody, mother in Louisville, um, her uh, mom's in Indianapolis, and had a son in Indy. And what was challenging for me is trying to balance um, a lot of commitment I had back home with friends and family. And when we first went, we didn't know the outcome, whether or not we were going to go back to Indiana. And that was tough because most of my connections back home, from a business perspective, job and familiarity with lifestyle there. But God saw it fit for us to stay in Columbus. But the toughest thing I think for myself, kind of like Ben, was like when I went through med board and was starting to transition. Man, even though I had civilian experience, I wasn't as equipped as I thought I was to start. Pretty much, I had to reinvent myself again in balanced family. And unfortunately, maybe I didn't connect right with the military on some of the resources they had. Wasn't aware of them as much. Of course, reservists weren't taught, or that I know of, taught to be tight with your medical records, like Monique said. So wasn't a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of uncertainty, and still having children. And for us, coming from small town Indianapolis at the time, we the only thing we can do, I thought, to make the kind of money I need to make for my wife and the children, being the size we were, was to look at Atlanta. And that was a tremendously challenging episode in my life because it was intimidating. We didn't know anything about Atlanta. Um, and, I was intimidated. Then it kind of worked out that I ended up uh, commuting first and getting to know, because I ran a store in the hood. Boy, it was rough. But the blessing was, that I saw I was able to get very familiar with um, Atlanta. But I would offer this to anybody that's transitioning out. If 4 or 5 years out, which is right, a great. I'm gonna do 20 and get out. Start building your resume. Get a career coach, uh, and pay for it. A lot of people want to do that stuff on their own. Man, the world, and all of us have been in the civilian sector, know that the world operates differently outside the military. You can be a general one day, and the next day you're unemployed. People are like, we don't we don't shoot up people in civilian world. So how does that convert over to what we do here at whatever company, USA? And so the other part that I think we didn't touch on was they think everybody that gets out of the military is mean, and that we are super disciplined, and to an extent that we're put in place to fire people and very hard on people. I'm like, bro, we come from a world of community. We lift each other up and try to get through. The civilian side, of course, they want you to do the worst you can do to people sometimes to make them perform versus build up a team. And it's very unfortunate the way that works. But got to prepare yourself mentally. I think Monique said it best. Every benefit you can get out of that military. I am very grateful for that. I got my master's degree recently from the military, all paid um, through the vocal rehab. Also, being a reservist, I got another GI Bill when I got my certificate, Monique. So I was very fortunate there to get my carpentry certificate. It was really I make as much money doing carpentry work as I do as an ops leader for Amazon. But when I think about people that transition, young soldiers that don't know, that's all they've done. They got to align themselves. I think what Nancy and Enrique said about become civilian folks. Start getting on podcasts and learning what am I going to do and how can I transition my military skills over. And I'll be quite honest. I look back now. Uh, if you want to be selfish, it's okay to take care of yourself, give yourself some self love. You're getting out, get into a branch transfer or get into a different occupation is going to be marketable when you get out of the military. At the end of the day, if you're 3-4 years out, 2 years out, you can get a nice certificate. If I was a soldier right now, I'd probably go into cybersecurity or IT without a shadow of a doubt. That's what I would be doing. That would give a person a nicer living. Double down with your benefits would be just an awesome life. But I'll say this last piece. I'll quit talking. I'm a preacher. I can talk till next week. I will say this. Uh, one of the biggest opportunities we have that I think and have thought is nuts is that you have people that come from Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all over the world, and they're more fearful at their job in America than they are in the combat.
Mhm.
And because Ben said it best, you have all these things that are taken care of, and somebody says, "Wait, man, if you don't do this, man, you're probably gonna lose your job." You're like, "Man, lose your job? Man, we don't lose our job in the military. What are you talking about?" Because we just don't get explained those things to us. It's like a parent saying, "Okay, I raised you 18 years old. The world's yours. You no longer have a place to stay." You're like, "What do you mean? I was only here for 18 years." And so people just don't get it, and it's a mental thing. I taste a little bit, from the time that I was on active duty. I was like, man, I had a good job and I had to go on active duty and then come back off. Like, man, when am I gonna make that kind of money again? I mean, what the frick? I mean, they just literally snatched my life from me. It's a lot. It was tough. I'm like, man, I was settled, bro. These folks bumped their heads and they expect me just to jump back out there and and this be all right. Oh, thank you for your service. Give you a bunch of awards, put it on the wall, and then awards don't turn into money.
Mm.
So, but overall, I still would trade it in. But it was tough, man. It was tough, and my heart goes out to people in the service that don't have a clue about the civilian sector. Um,
Yeah.
People are tough and rough, and they're not nice. And you go in there as a disciplined person that they think they can tell you to do stuff, and you usually move it first. I'm gonna do it exactly what they say do, and you figure out all the things that they're telling you to do. Nobody else is doing, and they get promoted, and you're still doing the same job you started out
Mm.
with when you transfer it out. So I would give you that encouragement.
Wow. Thank you so much. Y'all said so much right there. We probably could do 2 more shows. But Miss Nancy and Mr. Enrique, I'm gonna pose that same question to you guys. What would you share with the loved ones of active duty families and veteran families? What are some of the things that they could do to better support them during that time in service and as they transition out and into becoming veterans into the civilian world?
Well, it's hard to even answer that from my perspective because I learned to live without family,
Yeah.
and there was a huge disconnect.
Hmm.
So even that was a challenge in transition. We had it on in our hearts and our mind. We're finally home. I was looking for my dad, waiting for with the ring and the coat and the sandals, but they weren't there. Right?
You was looking for a
Prodigal
welcome.
son coming home, but but no dad. So but it was tough, and it's still tough today. I'll tell you, it's been 9 years, and I have still not connected back with my family.
Mm,
I,
yeah.
I, it is exactly the same it was that I was when I was in. So I mean, I don't know if that's everybody else's experience, but that's mine, and it's sad because you figure, hey, you haven't had me for that long. You think you'd be happy, but like I mentioned earlier, right? We're the 1%. The rest of the world learned to live without,
Yeah.
and so what I tell folks is, create for yourself the type of family that will support you,
Hmm.
because sometimes family is comes from other sources than blood.
Yeah.
And I know friends and acquaintances that have been more family to me than my own. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
gather your family. However you're gonna do that.
I- yeah. We could sound like this probably should have been a topic by itself too. 'Cause I don't know about you, babe, but they've been saying some stuff that just resonate in my heart. What about yours?
No, that everybody has said some things that, like, like we learned to do in the military. You take bits and pieces of everything, and every single person that has answered the question, I was like, you know, wow, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
We definitely had to let family go because we were never stationed around any family.
Hmm.
This is the closest being stationed in Texas was the closest we got to family. Everywhere else was on one coast or the other, or a sea apart from somebody else.
Hmm.
From the closest family, and we definitely, Enrique hit the nail on the head. We definitely had to learn to live without family. We had to
Hmm.
learn very quickly, and then you all of a sudden you're 20 years, 22 years, 24 years in, and there's a whole other generation or two generations at home that you have no idea who
Have
they
never
are,
met him yet.
never seen them. We've gone back home to family reunions, and they're like, this is so and so's child. I didn't even know so and so had a child, and they got five. They got a whole family. Their family's bigger than mine. So there's two or three generations at home that I have no clue who they are. I know the family that I grew up with, the cousins that we all played together, or we all, either played sports together, or went cow tipping and all of that stuff, messing with the cows in the pasture. Yeah, those are the
Because we
types of
country,
things.
y'all.
Yeah, we're country.
Hold up, brother. Cow
Hey,
tipping. Come on.
oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. I grew up in Louisiana now. Don't get me wrong, from New Orleans, but my father's side of the family was entirely from Mississippi. So yes, I spent my summers in Mississippi. So yes, cow tipping was a part of it. Doing stupid stuff, going messing with the cows in the pasture, all of that stuff, rolling tractor wheels down the hill. Yeah, those are the
Mm.
people I grew up with, and now all of a sudden they've had kids that are now having kids, and I know none of these people. And it's like you feel like a stranger amongst your own family.
Mhm.
This is your blood family, and we're closer to some of the people that we've met in England and Germany and different places we've been, Turkey. We're closer to some of those people than we are our own family. There's people I can call right now in England, and hey, give me a day to get my stuff together. I'll be on a flight. It's just like that, and I can't get my family to do something, and they stay, you know, 3, 4 hours away. And I got people coming from a world away, a sea away, jumping on a flight at a moment's notice because that friendship is that tight.
Yeah.
Those are those bonds that we grew in the military. The military is a small community, but we still have people we've met in the military and because of the military that we form closer bonds with than we do with our own family. And sometimes you have to rely on those friends, whereas you can't rely on family. So There was a lot said. I agree
Yeah.
with what everybody
Everybody
said.
said, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll share my thoughts on that in just a minute. Miss Nikki, what about you? You know, I'm gonna stop calling you that because your name is
It's
Monique.
okay.
Right
It's
on the
okay.
slide.
It's okay. We getting ready to talk about family. So yeah, that's my childhood name. I'm trying to evolve into my government name, Monique or Mo, but it's fine. It's fine. Now the whole world knows my nickname, my childhood nickname. It's okay. It's hey, it's okay. What I wanted to say was the message that we need to get to our families, and you know, is we're not rich. We are not rich. We get
Now,
paid on the
wait a minute.
first and
What
the
am I saying?
15th.
I need to put that
We
up
get
there.
paid once a month. We get paid on the first and the 15th. That's how we are able to sustain. However, we are not rich. And so we cannot always just pick up and go every holiday or every summer. They need to come to visit us. One, because we're already moving every 3 years. We're always moving. We want to be home sometimes. We've been deployed. We want to be at our houses. We want to make our own traditions. And so sometimes also when you go back home, it is not a sense of the togetherness that we have as military families when we didn't have, or we were deployed, or we were in the field. We just had to make it work through the holidays. And so sometimes they don't understand our mental health when it comes to that. We don't want to be
Mhm.
around large crowds. Sometimes it's a whole different ball game trying to reintegrate ourselves back into some of our families. And so it's difficult, and they don't have the capacity to understand where we're coming from, or the same way we can get on the road, they can come to us as well. And so that's some of the difficulties. Also, sometimes they don't understand the level that we're continue to grow at, why we may have the house we have or drive the cars we drive. We're entitled to that. We worked hard for everything that that we have. And so
Oh, you muted, Nick. Monique, I can't hear you.
Oh, the family got the hold of the phone.
She
That's what
froze.
happened. They didn't want to hear her telling the truth.
Like you were telling it too.
Yeah. Oh, she may be in a bad spot. Miss
Mhm.
Stephanie, I'm gonna shoot that same question to you, and then Miss Nancy, I want you to have an opportunity to speak on that same question. Stephanie, what about you? What is your recommendation? Now, Steph, I know
Well,
your
I was
situation
gonna
is a little different because you were Air Force brat, so you came from a military family.
right. Yeah. I was going to say before Monique froze, I had that exact thing written on this paper right here. We are not rich because sometimes civilians, family members, they think that's what that is, and it's not. So I was just gonna say, to tell family members, be patient with the service member
Mhm.
and understand that the service, it's going to take a second, but understand that the person who left how many ever years ago is not the person who's coming back.
Right,
They're different.
right,
Under,
right.
they're not going to understand that until that happens in that moment. But just know they're not the same little Johnny who went jumping off the porch and loved to go to the river. Now they can't stand water, but you don't know what that story is.
Mhm,
Be patient and let them tell you.
mhm.
Um, So yes, I came from an Air Force family. My dad was in the Air Force. Um, let's see. Fast forward, I went in ROTC. I was an officer in the military, and I went to Fort Hood. I was there for 6 years. I went in the military, never to stay in the military. Never. It was never my plan. I'm going in to pay back my time for paying for Uncle Sam, paying for my undergrad, and I'm getting out. And that's exactly what I did. So, in my mind, that whole transition piece it wasn't my responsibility. It was, at the time I was married, so it was my husband's. So let him do that. He's in the military, so he's gonna do that, and we're just gonna ride along. And that's kind of how I took that. And so I went from being a service member myself to being a spouse and a mother and everything else that goes with it. The realtor, the cook, the everything else that goes. And now today I picked up entrepreneurship from Quasha. Yes, I did. Um, yes, I did. I picked it. I had no. It wasn't on my radar anywhere on my radar. And talking on the phone, do 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 do. Yeah, I found myself in some situations going, why am I on the phone with this school and doggone this other school in Virginia to get my doctorate? I really can, because she said do it. What? Yeah, so that's where I am. Still moving forward. Um, Two of my three boys are over 20. So one is in North Dakota and one is here in Texas. And I love the one that's, I mean, not, let me not say it like that. I love how my oldest, let me fix that. My oldest son took that step to go that far away from family. And I was like, I would have never done that. But I didn't come down on him for it. I'm looking at him going, Shh, you can teach me some stuff, because he's living in that moment, and I love it. He's succeeding. He's in school. He's doing all the stuff. Um, Other one is here. He's in school doing that, and then I got a 12-year-old. I love that. I love middle school. I love it. I'm getting used to it. It's another transition. It is. It is. Pray for me every day, because that's what I'm doing. And I have a nonprofit that I'm starting. And let's see, Quasha will tell me if I forget anything. Um, the Floyd McAllen Hope Center. It's not up and running, but it's going to be a residential treatment facility for veterans dealing with substance abuse. And so I'm trying to get that started. So I'm using these platforms to network with the people who are already in the community doing that stuff, so that I can get started and keep moving. And that's it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Uh, and Miss Nancy, would you like to add anything to what everyone else has said and what Enrique has said? Uh, how can our extended families better support us?
Honestly, listening to what everybody said, I was gonna jump on the same bandwagon because I agree with Miss Monique and Miss Stephanie and what my husband said. Um, and I was thinking the very same thing right before they said it. So for one, you do get used to being without. In the very beginning, for me, of course, it was challenging. I'm very family oriented. I was spending a lot of time with my family, so it was a huge challenge in the beginning. But after a while, you adapt and you just figure, okay, this is my little circle, and I'm gonna focus on my circle. When you express, at least for me, missing family, wishing you had more, family nearby and family support. For me personally, I heard a lot of, well, that's a choice you made. You made the choice to detach yourself.
Mm,
Um, and I immediately just took
mm-hmm,
that as, okay, well, I guess I'm on my own. It was a, I guess I'm on my own. Okay, so I know where I stand. It didn't feel good, but
mm-hmm,
I at least I knew where
Wow.
I stood, and I knew I couldn't have that support. Like Miss Monique had said, the whole money thing. Oh, well, you guys have all this money. You guys live far. You can come here anytime you want. No, we can't, because life goes on. My husband has to take leave. He may not be able to take leave. You know, I don't necessarily want to go somewhere,
mm-hmm,
just me, my children and I, our children and I, and leave my husband behind. So it
mm-hmm.
so it entails a lot, and it would be great to have their support. Um like Miss Stephanie said, for the family to listen, take the time to listen. You're not dealing with the same people. It's two totally different lives. Um, and
Mhm.
be open minded to hear what my life is now and how I need your support versus kind of pushing me off to, well, you made that choice is on you. Just deal with it.
Yeah.
And when you come back, basically, not, I won't say entirely ignore you, but like my husband said, we've been here for 9 years. We moved here because the Lord led him to, and for us to be closer to family. We have seen in the 9 years reason after reason after reason. Like the Lord has definitely showed us why He placed us here. And it took me a while to come to terms to that because I was not happy to come here at all. It's not what I want. It's not what I wanted. And I was not very
But
pleased.
God.
I was not pleased. However, even being here, I tell him it's just our circle. It's just our circle. We really don't see family. We have family that's, let's say an hour
Mhm.
away and an hour and and 30 minutes away, even 30 minutes away. I have a relative that lives 30 minutes away and she complains because I live far. I'm 30 minutes away from you. So it's like if I don't go see her, for example, then I won't see her. And
Mhm.
like Miss Monique said,
Won't see her.
you want your own traditions. You want to be home. You want to share your home and
Yeah.
your traditions with family, but you can't make them. So you just continue moving on. That's what I do with our family, and we make our plans for ourselves and extend the invitation out. You try to include family, but if they're not willing to, like
Mhm.
I said again, be open minded, and partake in that, life keeps going. Life is not going to stop. So we're going to keep on living.
And, I listen.
I'm
I
surprised she didn't get
I
cut off
vouch for
working.
that because they cut Miss Monique off because she was going in, but I was agreeing with all that. Like somebody should have gave her a bullhorn. We're not rich. We weren't rich on active duty. We're not rich in retirement. I don't know about you guys, but like they count our pocketbook. Oh, he getting these big retirement checks and he getting these big checks from the VA. Bro, we got bills. Just like you got bills. We have 5 kids. And when he first retired, I'm it ain't 15, LaChelle and Jerome. It ain't 15, but
Some
5 was on us.
sometimes them five feel like 15. I
Yeah,
tell you.
you get kids in school, you got kids in college, you got kids in school, you got house notes, car notes. We have all of the same bills as everybody else, but somehow, family members have decided that you got lots of money. So yes, we're not rich.
Mhm.
And that line of communication, that visiting line goes both ways. We were overseas for
Mhm.
7.5 years from 2010 to 2017, right? Only one of our family members came to visit us in that entire time. One, just one. We've lived in Texas
Y'all
off
should
and
have went to
on.
Hawaii.
We, we should have. We should have. It did. You know what? I'm not gonna say it didn't come up. It did come up, but they were rapid deploying out of Hawaii just like they were rapid deploying out of Fort Hood. So we chose England because he needed a break. We needed a break from Iraq. Like we needed a break from that. But even in all this, from his beginning of his career in 1996 to today, right now, today, we have some family members that have never, ever, ever been to our house. Never. But if we go to Mississippi and don't stop, it's problematic. And that used to
Mhm.
bother me. And I used to
Mhm.
make an effort to stop. I don't stop no more. Do I have to pass by to get to where I'm going? Absolutely. We have been gone from home since 1996. It is 2017. You ain't never been to my house. Ever.
Mm.
Regardless of where I
Regardless.
live.
You've been in the state,
Yep.
but you haven't come to my house. So why am I going? No, I'm
Oh,
not.
oh.
We do you like being able to for us, or even having conversations, about just to us as regular everyday things. Like we having this conversation, he's deployed, he's been in the field, this is happening, that's happening, and then having to over explain some stuff is frustrating. So you tend to draw back. And I want to say it was LaChelle who said it. Like we disconnected because it was easier to disconnect and not be always frustrated than it was to remain connected and remain frustrated because family members just didn't get it no matter how we broke it down. So I would say for me personally, for family members that are listening to this podcast, whether you write on the live right now or listening to it on the replay, the best way that you can support your service members, your active duty families or your veteran families is to listen and be empathetic about what they're experiencing and what they're going through. It's not a comparison, because quite frankly, you can't compare. You cannot compare when whether it's Jerome or Monique or Stephanie or Enrique or Ben, when they leave to go to work, especially in a deployed environment. If I don't care whether your significant other is the truck driver, the doctor, the lawyer, I don't care what you do. Nobody's shooting at them on purpose. Nobody's shooting at them. Nobody's trying to blow up their ship. Nobody's trying to blow up their Humvee or their track or whatever vehicle y'all riding. Ain't nobody trying to blow that up. But that's literally what their job is. And so to me, that you can't compare. So the best thing that our family members can do is to learn to listen, empathy, not sympathy. I don't want your sympathy, but your empathy and your ability to listen and realize that what you may have to sacrifice in order to support us, is it not worth the sacrifice? I think that was the thing that made me the angriest while he was on active duty, that family members that was just, straight civilian, they expected the sacrifice from us, but they were unwilling to give the sacrifices themselves. And after a while, that can make you bitter. I'm just like I was bitter. I had to commit that to a lot of prayer, and that bitterness wasn't just towards his family members, but and my family members. Like, wow, y'all really can't y'all really can't see yourself doing that. Like you really can't see yourself coming to visit me. You really can't see yourself, if I'm at home. You really can't see yourself driving that 30 minutes, that hour and a half to come visit me. You know, and I had to come to that realization. Honestly, it was towards the end of Ben's career when I realized how bitter I was about it. I had flown, my grandmother was really sick, and I used to have to fly back from Germany often to come and see about her. Not the family here wasn't seeing about her, but she raised me. So I wanted to come as much as I could. And we had family members that was like, "Oh, you've been in the country this many days and you ain't come see me? Did you hear what you just said? I'm in the country. I crossed the North Atlantic. You can't come see me? Like, you can't come see me?" That's those are the things, like, as family members of military families, sacrifice some stuff. It won't kill you. You will see how it can actually make your relationship with your military family that much stronger. So that would be my advice. And I know, like, we are way over time, Miss Monique. You started a good conversation, sis. Like, after you said what you said, everybody opened up because we're not rich. I know it cut you off. You lost connection there. Was there anything else you wanted to give before we go ahead and wrap up our conversation tonight?
No, you know, I, everybody's pretty much said everything, and that's the biggest thing is, you know, families or just other people in the community. One thing about us as military people, we're about the community. We're about taking care of ourselves, and that's what people need to lead with. How can you serve? How can you help? How can you be empathetic, sympathetic of the situations that we've been through? We don't need the pity. We just need the caring and the understanding. That's what we need. And just to be
Yeah,
able to get back into the civilian sector. So, yeah.
that's awesome. Listen, y'all, everybody that has joined us tonight, I definitely appreciate you and your patience. For being on this live with us tonight. It's definitely been a great conversation, and to see how we have so many similarities, whether we're Army families, Navy families, you know, a veteran is a veteran is a veteran. A military family is a military family. And we have so many shared experiences that draw us closer together. In very few differences that push us apart. So I definitely appreciate you guys for coming on. Does anyone have any last words that they'd like to share before we wrap up the live tonight?
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a T-shirt that said "We don't need the pity. We don't need the pity."
Right. We'll we don't need the pity. We should make that. Who makes shirts on here? Somebody make this shirt. I need a
Make
copy.
sure the back say
We got a comment. Yeah, come on, Monique. We're gonna autograph it with your name on it. We've got some people been in the comments. I should have been talking about these comments through the show. I apologize, y'all. That's in the comments. We appreciate you guys joining. One of my husband's colleagues, LeVar, and LeVar is in Korea right now, right?
No, he's at home right
He's
now.
at home right
Yeah.
now. Oh, that's why he on the live, because I was about to say he done sacrificed a lot to be up tonight. But LeVar said something really similar to what you said, Enrique. He says he appreciates all of the thoughts that were shared tonight, and as veterans, we are simply wired differently than non-military civilians. It's an honor to be a part of the 6% of the American adult population. Small, I've heard you say something like that, like all your career, about the small percentage of Americans that actually get the honor to serve.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very small when you think about it, and you look at the actual numbers of our different services, each branch, and then you look at the total population of the U.S. It's a very very small percentage that actually choose to serve, choose that honor, or choose to receive that honor to serve. Uh, Very, very small population, a percentage of the population. Um, so the few serve the many, I guess. Is how we look at it. I just had one more thing to say. Jerome, I'm coming your way soon, brother. We're gonna get to break bread.
All right, good. I look forward to it, man.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Hey,
I'm coming
bring the
your way
checkbook, man.
soon, brother.
Take care.
Hey, I got
If
it
you
sitting
traveling,
right
you got the
next
money.
to me.
If you
I
traveling, you
got
got the money.
it right next to me.
That's how you do me.
We go
That's how
Waffle
you
House.
do
I'm
me.
paying. Go to Waffle House.
We're gonna turn that out, bro.
Love it.
Me and you.
Oh yeah, come on, come on, we
Anyone else?
got it.
As long as y'all not falling asleep, that's good, right, Laquita?
I
Say
go
it
to sleep
again,
quick
Michelle,
now.
because
It goes. That comes with age.
we were awake.
Yeah, that falling asleep comes with age.
Hey, it is what it is.
You, I do. I do want to add one thing about military life, though, is that it helps you to make lifelong friends.
Oh yeah.
So the funny thing
Yes, it
is,
does.
Laquita and I got connected on LinkedIn, and she called and said, "I'm gonna be in Atlanta," because she was being honored for something. And we met for the first time, and our husbands were like, "Now, how long have y'all known each other?" Because it had seemed like we had known each other forever, and we were just meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit I think about the military, is that you can just, like Enrique said, you can just gather your own community.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy, Enrique, do you guys have any last thoughts you want to share?
No, I want to thank you for having us on your show. I appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Talk about your
You know, I'm gonna have fun.
book,
So
because I was supposed to talk about you know, listen, go ahead and make that plug, because I was supposed to talk about it. I can't even lie and say I didn't forget. I did forget
Well,
until right then. Talk about your book that's coming and your live to lead, Enrique, because you doing big things on the stage with John Maxwell and Valerie Burton.
well, my book was actually released on October 25th. So it's The Power of Words and the Human Soul, and it's actually a journal book. So it's a combination of affirmations, and it has an area for journaling, and it's to help with the healing process. There's a lot of different areas that I myself have struggled with, still continue to struggle with. So I kind of focused on that. Um, and I'm just hoping to bring a little bit of light to someone else, maybe help them, kind of for people to understand that they're not alone in their journeys. Personally, I felt very alone. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with all kinds of things, and it can get very, very lonely when you're trying to process things and to heal. And it's taken me a long time to get to where I am. And I know that it can take people. Some people never even get there. So the book is just basically so people know that there's power in our words, right? So, we say, you hear a lot of, oh, manifest what you want to see. Well, use those words to uplift, to encourage. One thing I always say about myself, if I can't encourage you, if I can't inspire you, if I can't uplift you, I have no business being in your life. That's the
mm,
way I personally feel.
mm.
Mm.
Because I don't want I don't want that within myself.
Yeah.
When you're growing up and you have a lot of challenges and you have you traumas and all those things, you learn to accept. It almost becomes a norm for you to allow people to walk all over you. Basically,
Mhm.
you're already feeling beaten down, and someone else comes and tramples on you, steps on you like you're a mat, and you allow that to become your norm until you have a moment when you realize, wait, I'm worth more than that. And if I'm not doing that, to other people, why am I allowing it to happen to me? So, I mean, and like I
Mm.
said, I say it all the time. If I cannot be a positive source, if you don't feel light when you're around me, I encourage you, remove yourself from me.
Come on, somebody.
And if I realize that, I will remove myself. Like I have distanced myself from relationships where I felt that there was no true connection, and I realized that I was not only was I feeling drained, I I actually noticed that I was draining the other person. So I severed those relationships.
Mm.
And that's where that came from.
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
that's what the book is. So that's my actual first book by myself. I co-authored, my husband and I actually co-authored a book. Um and that was the first one that we co-authored that kind of opened the door for this one, and this is just a stepping stone.
Listen, you gonna have to come back. Me and you and LaChelle gonna have to have a conversation. I feel it in my
I'm
shanana.
all
What
for it.
about you,
Let me
LaChelle? Did you?
Woo!
I love that. I love that.
Don't
I
start
love
nothing.
that. Well, with that, you know I'm about to do it. I'm trying to behave. I'm trying to behave. So Ben won't pinch me. Behave a little bit. Enrique, talk about your live to lead, man.
Yeah, praise God. So, Live to Lead here in Orlando coming December. Fortunate to be invited to speak at that event. My good friend Ali Braswell Jr. here locally, he's running the whole show, but it is a blessing to finally be among the Maxwell team speaking at an event,
Mm.
and it's going to be great. So, anybody in the Orlando, Central Florida area, or if you like to fly in, we ain't going to stop you. But to join us December 6th here. It's an all-day event, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's a powerful lineup, man. Live to Lead is an awesome thing. So I wish I was in your area. I definitely would be out there checking you guys out. So if you're in the area or you flying into the area, check out Enrique's um, LinkedIn page so you can find out more about the event, how to get your tickets, location, all that good stuff. He has the details on his social media. And I know he's especially active on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn so you can find out more. And Miss Monique, is there any last words that you'd like to share?
One, thank you so much for having me on your platform. I would like to share that I am having an event in January. It's a series for grief and loss in honor of my sister. And I'll be giving out the first scholarship in her name. It's a series because it's from January 9th through the 12th. It'll be an online event, it'll be an in person event, it'll be a social media event, and just bringing awareness to let people know how to deal and cope, or how to help people, or understand where people are coming from when they're dealing with grief and loss. Because sometimes people just don't know how to support or just don't know what to say. And so my platform is about mental health, and I bring it to where we have real talk conversations about real life situations, and then ultimately learning how to feel what you're going through. Then you got to learn how to heal it, and then you still got to learn how to deal with it every day. And so that's where Real Talk Time comes from. And the acronym for time is Transforming Your Mind Events. So I appreciate the platform to be able to share tonight, and happy Veterans Day to everybody.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And Miss Stephanie, you have any last words you'd like to share this evening? Oh, Miss Monique, we
Thank you
lost you again.
for the opportunity to be on the platform. I do appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yep, I can hear you.
Hello. Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank you.
awesome.
And
All right.
just, I don't know, my book. It's really not this thick. That's two of them put together. Um, it's Beyond Boundaries, Inspiring Leaders in Business and Community. And that is
Awesome,
it
awesome. So we're gonna have
on Amazon.
awesome. We'll have the links to everyone on Amazon. We'll have the links to Stephanie's book, Nancy's book, some links for Miss Monique's event, and as well as the links for Jerome's book. We'll put those in the comments. And Miss LaChelle, I know we didn't talk about our episode of on your show, so I need you to make sure you put the link in the comments to your show so we could get everybody can go out and binge watch your show.
Oh
Drop
yeah.
the link in the comment section. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well, you guys,
Okay. Yeah, I'll put those when we, yeah. It's a
put the
little
links
delay,
in.
so
Okay.
hopefully you can hear us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we do. We do. Awesome. Listen, guys, it has been
I'm
another
sorry.
amazing episode of Can you hear me, Monique? We lost you for a minute.
Yes, I can. Oh, y'all lost me. I'm so sorry. I'm traveling.
We did.
Can you hear me now?
No worry. Yes, no worry. What we'll do,
Oh, so
I'll ask you to put your link in the
I'll just put the
comment
link
section.
in the flyers. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for being great guests on Laquita's Toolbox Live. To all of you that have come in and joined the conversation on LinkedIn and on YouTube and also on the Purpose Place Network, we appreciate you so much. Those of you that are viewing on the Daily Faith Network as well as on the Parade Deck, thank you so much for taking the time out to visit with us on tonight. If you're watching the replay, we appreciate you. Continue to get in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, get your feedback, learn more about your experience. But until next time, I am your host, LaQuita Monley. My amazing husband, Ben Monley. Go ahead, give yourself a shout out. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Until next time, you guys be blessed and have an amazing rest of your evening. Take care. God bless.